harder to offer Americans relief in the future are simply non-starters. So I'll be very clear. If Congress were to pass H.R. 21, the president would veto it. He will not allow the American people to suffer because of the backwards agenda that House Republicans are advancing. As Karine said, President Biden really has been singularly focused on reducing costs for American families, especially energy costs, especially both transportation as well as at home. As Karine said, the average price of a gallon of gas is now down about $1.60 from last summer's peak, about a 30% decline. And in fact, prices are lower too.
Thanks, Karine. On the economy. So more companies are announcing layoffs. We're seeing retail sales drop off for 2 months in a row now, and inflation is back to 40-year highs. Is this the stable growth that you've been talking about? And if not, when does that stable growth get here?
Look, we are still seeing transition to a stable and steady growth. That is what we are seeing when we look at the data. Look, yes, there are layoffs that you're asking me about, and we've previously said on the broader economy, layoffs remain near record lows according to job opening data. So we're looking at the data, and this is what the data has been telling us. And so again, this is an economic policy, an economic plan that is working, and a lot of it is because the president has taken bold steps.
When can Americans see that stable growth you're talking about?
Well, I think you look at this, again, I pointed to the CPI data, I pointed to the PPI data, where we have seen inflation coming down. Let's not forget the Inflation Reduction Act, where it's going to be implemented in the next couple of months. Look, the president has taken this very seriously, has an economic plan.
So gas prices are now up 33 cents over the past month. The president took credit for the prices coming down. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, as you mentioned, is no longer releasing. Does the president get credit for the price of gas going up?
Well, it's obviously based upon international and climate events. So we'll see what happens with respect to the price of gas. We know that there are still refineries that have been pulled down, both for maintenance as well as because of Winter Storm Elliott. But in the end, we think it'll be balancing out soon.
As many of you are tracking, this week, House Republicans will vote to raise gas prices on American families. The contrast in priorities could not be more stark. The president spent the last 2 years, as you know, doing everything he could to lower gas prices for American families, and prices are down about $1.60 a gallon since last summer. Now, House Republicans are using their narrow majority to force the American people to pay higher gas prices.
The House has passed bipartisan legislation that would ban the export of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to Chinese companies. Given that oil has flowed to China from that reserve during both this administration and the previous one, is that the type of reform that the president would potentially support?
So look, I think this is a little bit of what the Secretary was talking about just moments ago. This bill addresses a non-issue. We're very clear on that. We're focused on advancing legislation that would lower costs for American families, not raise them. So I'm just going to leave it there.
First on our exports of liquefied natural gas and the criticism that some environmental groups have surfaced regarding that and climate change. Can you address that? And number two, Texas is now, I think, poised or has already surpassed California in renewable energy production. What do you make of Republican states like Texas going in on green energy? And are there lessons to be learned from the way they're doing it as opposed to blue states?
With respect to Texas, what an opportunity for every state to be able to produce clean energy. And in fact, Political Story this morning suggested that there was an abundance of announcements coming out of red states. Great. That is fantastic. We want to be able to see energy, clean energy produced in every pocket of the country. Blue states, red states, really it helps to save people money, so it's really all about green.
And on the energy bill, Secretary Granholm outlined that she doesn't want the U.S.'s ability to draw down these strategic oil reserves to be hampered in a time of future crisis. But would the administration support a minimum threshold of oil to keep in those reserves for national security purposes?
Look, I'm not going to get into any policy decisions that the Department of Energy is going to be making. You heard directly from the Energy Secretary from here, right?
Yet, as Karine said, House Republicans are now pursuing this extreme agenda that risks worsening supply shortages in times of crisis and risks raising prices, gas prices for American families. When you consider H.R. 21, which is a bill that they've introduced, it needlessly aims to weaken the strategic petroleum reserves. H.R. 21 would impose unnecessary, unhelpful restrictions on when the SPR can be used to help provide supply. It would require these arbitrary reports regarding energy production on federal lands before waiving any new restrictions. It would not offer any tangible benefits to the American people. Instead, it would interfere